Hello! We're looking in the Reading Resources, the appendix of Keys to Learning, page 216. In Unit 4, you read a poem by Jorge Lujan called The Darkness. Did you understand the poem? In this reading, you will read another poem by Mr. Lujan called A Fleeting Dozen. You will also learn some of the words we use to help us think and talk about poetry. Poetry. Understanding images. Poetry uses words that make you feel things and let you see pictures in your mind. In a poem, the words may let you see a cat, or hear a flute, or even smell a lemon. Figures of speech. Similes, say similes, 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 similes. And metaphors, metaphors, metaphors. Figures of speech, similes, and metaphors. Many poems use figures of speech to create images or pictures. A simile uses like or as to compare two unlike things. Quote, like a cat, she moved quickly through the crowded hallway. So here, she is probably a person, right? So she, the person, is like a cat because she's fast. So that's a simile because it uses like. Like or as is a simile. But both of them compare two things. A metaphor links two things without using like or as. So links means to connect. A metaphor links two things together without using like or as. The stars were bright diamonds in the dark sky above. And here you will see the stars are being compared with diamonds. That's a metaphor. Simile, metaphor. In poetry, similes and metaphors reveal something new. They give us a fresh way of looking at something we already know. Read this poem. A Fleeting Dozen. I put 12 oranges on the table. One rolled away like a setting sun. Another came to rest on a chair. 2 or 3 remained there in the middle, and 7 that were left are still speeding through the open pathways of my mind. And it was originally in Spanish. I put 12 oranges on the table. One rolled away like a setting sun. Another came to rest on a chair. 2 or 3 remained there in the middle, and the 7 that were left are still speeding through the open pathways of my mind. Here's the picture. You try it. Before you go on, did you read the poem again? Which line in the poem has a simile? which line has a simile? Look for the word like or as. Did you find it? Like the setting sun. So it rolled away like the setting sun off the table. Whee! There's your simile. Understanding the poem. To understand a poem, you should read it several times. Should you read it once? Twice? 3 times? 4? 4 or more. Several. Several times. Each time, stop and think about the words. What images do they create in your mind? What pictures? How do the images make you feel? Read the first 2 lines of the poem again. Think about the simile. One rolled away like a setting sun. Why do you think the poet is comparing one of the oranges to the setting sun? Reread the rest of the poem. What happened to the 7 oranges? The 7 that were left? What image do you see at the end? Your answers might be different from your classmates' answers. Not everyone interprets or explains the meaning of a poem the same way, and that's okay. Some poems are hard to interpret, but we can still enjoy the images they create. Look at the reading again. What are some words you don't know? Since you're using your notebook, you can highlight or circle words that you don't know. What do you think they mean? Then you can check a dictionary or your translator. Google Translate. When you read a poem, what do you see in your mind? When I read a poem, I see a picture in my mind. What poems use figures? Sorry, I didn't read that correctly. Why? Why do poems use figures of speech? Skim and scan. To create images and to reveal something new, to give us a fresh way of looking at something. How is a metaphor different from a simile? A simile uses like and as to compare two unlike things, and metaphors do not. What are some questions you should ask yourself when you read a poem? Do you see the questions here? What images does the poem create in your mind? How do the images make you feel? Do thoughts ever speed through the pathways of your mind? In other words, do you sometimes think something so quickly you forget that you thought it? Let's look at the vocabulary. Figure of speech. Figure of speech. Image. Image. Metaphor. Metaphor. Poem. Poem. Poetry. Poetry. Simile. Simile.